Hey, this is Rosario Streams and welcome to You Know. For these next 3 weeks, I'm going to be doing a 3-part series talking about mental health. So the plan is that part 1, I will be talking about embracing brokenness as a person who struggles with mental health. Part 2, I will be addressing people who are caring for loved ones who struggle with mental health, and just addressing a few things that I have noticed in my own experience, and just hopefully be able to give a little bit of advice that may help those of you who are helping someone you care about who is struggling with mental health. In part 3, I will be addressing mental health specifically as a Christian. So if you don't want to miss out on those, then click the subscribe button and notification bell. Now let's get into it. Before we start this conversation, I really want to emphasize I am not an expert on anything to do with mental health, illness. I am just someone who has personal experience with depression and anxiety and sexual addictions, and who just wants to share her thoughts and feelings about the topic and hopefully open up a conversation about them. So yeah, just keep that in mind. But if you are from Australia and you do need mental health support, then I'm going to leave some links on the description below for you to have a check out. And so I'm going to start this conversation by saying that I think many times, especially us who struggle with mental health, we have the tendency of seeing mental health illness as a bad thing. And I think the reason we tend to see mental health illness as a bad thing is because we tend to define ourselves or identify ourselves a bit too much with the compulsion, with the diagnosis, with the feelings that come with all of that. And I'm here to say that that is wrong. Many times we'll tell ourselves lies, such as, if I didn't have this mental health problem, then I would be able to be more than, or I would be able to perform better, or I would be able to be a better person or do more for others. But in reality, mental health illness doesn't make us any less worth. I don't know if that phrase makes sense, but just hear me out. Especially because we live in a culture that glorifies productivity and hustle culture and just multitasking especially. I think that we tend to place our value on the things that we do, on how much we achieve, on how much we produce and give to others. But you know, the thing is, life is not linear. We're not gonna feel 100% every single day for the rest of our lives, and there will be seasons in our lives where we need to accept the fact that this is the time when we need to learn how to receive from others instead. There's nothing inherently wrong with us for struggling with depression, anxiety, trauma, OCD, bipolar, or any other mental health illness you can think of. And I think one of the things that we need to do in order to be able to embrace this brokenness within this season of our lives or within these circumstances we are facing is to have a kind of mindset shift. I can't say it properly. Mindset shift. So have a mindset shift about mental health illness to see it more as an asset rather than a burden. And I know that sounds crazy to think of mental health illness as an asset, but the thing is, I believe that if you suddenly struggle with mental health, it is such a great opportunity to really get to know yourself, get to know your strengths as well as your limitations, and really, instead of working against them, work within those limits. There's nothing wrong if you are not the type of person who can wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and study and have a full-time job at the same time and have a side hustle and yeah, just like whatever the millennials are doing these days. So because of that, I want to give you 5 pieces of advice that I learned about the hard way and that I'm hoping may kind of give you a little bit of hope throughout this challenging period of your life. Number 1, be curious about your feelings and thoughts. One of the tendencies we may fall into is to go into fight-flight mode, in the sense of trying to figure out how to fix this problem we have within ourselves right now. So it's kind of like we're trying to figure out how to get rid of this discomfort we have within ourselves, how to get rid of this brokenness and become perfect once again. But when you are doing that, you're kind of trying to suppress what's going on within you, trying to get rid of a part of yourself that needs actual nurturing instead. And the only way you can really nurture yourself is if you learn that emotions and thoughts are not a bad thing, but they are, in a sense, signals that are telling you that there's something going on within you that you need to address. And the way to listen to those emotions and thoughts is by becoming more curious, to become a curious observant of those feelings and thoughts. And I know it's really difficult to do that, especially if you're already in the fight-flight mode, then you're not gonna think about doing that. But whenever you do get the chance, it's so important to become more curious, to really explore what is this feeling, where did it come from, what is the need behind it that I need to nurture or address at that moment. For example, last night I noticed that for the past 2 weeks I had been kind of avoiding the feelings and the thoughts that I had in my mind. I've been struggling a lot with self-blame, and I noticed that I really wanted to watch Netflix for the rest of the night, and I knew that if I did that, then I would never get to sleep. So instead I journaled and I just tried to explore what was going on within me. Why was I feeling this way right now? Tried to see what was going on within me from a bird's eye view, like not as myself but as someone outside of myself, and try to find out why was I in this fight-flight mode at this moment. Why was I trying to fix the self-blame I was going through at that moment? And I realized that actually I have been trying to kind of suppress the fact that what I needed at that moment was for someone to tell me that I was forgiven for having sabotaged myself for the past 3 years since I went through the trauma. And suddenly realizing that brought about a bit of peace within me, actually. And that wouldn't have happened if I had stepped back from my automatic habits and just looked at my feelings and thoughts with curiosity. Okay, so number 2 is to drop the shoulda wouldas. I have described at the beginning of the video that we have the tendency of thinking that our mental health illness is a burden and it's wrong, and that if I didn't have this mental health struggle then I would be more perfect in a sense. And this second point is all about that, perfectionism. I truly believe that there's no such thing as perfection, specifically in human terms, okay? I went through a time during this year where I was just really wrestling with the thought of perfection, and I went out and asked people, okay, so what does it mean to be perfect? How do you become perfect and such? And one of the things that I was told was, well, imagine cooking bacon and eggs, and like, you know, perfection is when you get the right amount of crisp and the right amount of like runny egg yolk and stuff like that. But then I said, what if I don't like that crisp or that egg yolk? I feel that perfection then becomes more subjective than objective. And so that's one of the points I really want to emphasize, that in human terms, there's no such thing as perfection. We are all humans striving for the best, and because we are human, we also have weaknesses and limitations, and we're going to fall over sometimes. And so it's really important to become more aware of the false beliefs we are bringing in our minds about I should be more productive, I should be less lazy, I should be this or that. Especially when you're going through mental health struggles. Because as someone who struggles with depression and anxiety, I can tell you, like, I can't wake up anytime before 9, and for the past few months this year I actually couldn't wake up before 11 even. And I personally have struggled with the thought that I should be waking up at 5 a.m. and be able to get on with work right away. But that is not the case. I can't do that. And one of the reasons I keep thinking this way is because the culture around me is telling me that I should be productive, I should be hustling, that I should have 1 to 10 or so many achievements, which I know I can't do because that's just not how I work, especially within my circumstances with mental health. So a very important thing is to really become more aware of the false beliefs we have kind of fostered within our minds, and really kind of break them down, figure out where they came from, and really become more in touch with our own humanity, become more in touch with the fact that we do have weaknesses and we do have limitations, that there is no person here on earth that is perfect. Number 3 advice is to reach out to someone you trust. I went through a long year where I was just withdrawing from everyone. I was shutting my parents out of my life. I stopped hanging out with friends, and I was just in bed like most of the year, and that's why I gained some weight. But the thing is, we are social beings and we do need each other. So if you can find at least one person you can trust and who you can share what you're going through with, it's very important. I would really encourage you to do so. Even if it's just a relative, one of your parents, a sister, a brother, or a close friend of yours. Really, it's very important that you reach out, because we can't go through our challenges on our own. Even if it's not with mental health illness, but even if it's like losing a job or going through a divorce or financial hardship, you can't do things on your own. You need support. And so, as I said before, this is the season of your life where you need to learn how to receive from others. But of course, being able to explore your feelings and thoughts with curiosity, and being able to break down the false beliefs you have fostered in your mind. These are things that are quite difficult to tackle, not just on your own, but also with someone who is not a mental health expert. So that's why number 4 is to seek support from a mental health professional. And I really emphasize this point. I know that it's really difficult to talk to someone who's a stranger, and especially if you're someone who's more reserved, who's more shy, and who has less of the tendency of opening up way too much like I am, then it is going to be hard to talk to a mental health professional, but they have the expertise to help you. They have the tools and the strategies and the interventions to give you in order for you to be able to move forward in your healing journey. To be honest, I don't have much to say about this point, except that please go seek mental health professional help. Especially because those you love can do so much, but they can't really completely help you because they're not experts on mental health. And depending on who they are as well, they also have their own limits on how much they can take. And please, when you're listening to this part, don't feel guilty, don't feel ashamed. There is a tendency of falling into guilt because you think about this, but the truth is that we are all fragile. But even though we're all fragile, we were made to be in communion with one another. We can't do things on our own. And so that's why reaching out to someone you trust is so important, because you need love in your life to help you to continue on in your healing journey. But then also you need to seek the professional help, because they will be able to give you more practical tools and strategies and interventions that will help you to move forward in your healing journey. Now, the fifth piece of advice, and the last one, is to take a time out. It's very important to surround yourself with people you love. It's very important to be making the effort to really do what you can in regards to your healing journey. But also, there are times when thinking about your healing or talking to others can be quite stressful. You may burn out, you may feel like it's a bit too much to think about these things. And so sometimes you just need to step back and just take a break from things. We are not robots. We were not made to be constantly productive, because to be able to be in constant productivity, you need to then get rid of your emotions, but that's such a huge part of our humanity. So rather than getting rid of our emotions, we're actually suppressing them, and suppressing those emotions actually makes things worse for us. We can end up burning out quite bad. We can end up having a bit of an anxiety breakdown sometimes. It depends on who you are and how you deal with situations. But it's so important to really come to terms and accept our own limitations and weaknesses and work within those limitations instead of against them. So if you need to take a break, take the break. If you need to take a day off from work, take that day off from work. If you made time to catch up with a friend, but then you are feeling like you need to have some time on your own, then just let your friend know. I'm pretty sure they will understand. There's nothing wrong with feeling like you can't handle everything all the time. There's nothing wrong with needing to take a time out. It is part of the healing journey. It is part of the healing process. And we need to accept that. We need to accept that this is how broken we are at this moment, how this is how much we're struggling, and it does not define our worth, value, or identity. So this is the first part to my mental health series, and hopefully you were able to get some things out of this chat. If you have any questions or comments or queries or opinions or views on this topic, please leave them down in the comment section below, because I would love to hear what you have to say. And if you have a story to tell also, I would love to hear all about it. Pop a comment down there or send a DM on my Instagram page. Love you all so much, and I'll see you later.